Good evening, this is Akashvani Kohima. I'm Ningnenem Hangsing with the evening bulletin. The headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India's G20 presidency focuses on human-centric progress. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says ASEAN is central pillar of India's Act East policy and holds important place in Indo Pacific initiative. Union Minister Rajeev Chandrasekhar says Nagaland has huge economic prospects in micro-entrepreneurship of arts and handicrafts, and MLA Dr. Sukhato A Sema describes Gaon Buras as protectors, interpreters and custodians of Naga customary laws. Now the news in detail. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that India's G20 presidency has focused on human-centric progress to ensure that the fruits of globalization reach the last mile. Modi said, for India, the G20 presidency is not merely a high-level diplomatic endeavor. He said, as the mother of democracy and a model of diversity, India has opened the doors of this experience to the world. Prime Minister said India's G20 presidency strives to bridge divides, dismantle barriers and sow seeds of collaboration that nourish a world where unity prevails over discord. Modi said, as the G20 president, India had pledged to make the global table larger, ensuring that every voice is heard and every country contributes. The Prime Minister Modi said, the Voice of Global South Summit, which witnessed participation from 125 countries, was one of the foremost initiatives under India's presidency. Modi said, India's presidency has not only seen the largest ever participation from African countries, but has also pushed for the inclusion of the African Union as a permanent member of the G20. The Prime Minister said, a global ecosystem for clean and green hydrogen will emerge from India's presidency, along with a Green Hydrogen Innovation Centre. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that ASEAN is central pillar of India's Act East policy and holds an important place in India's Indo Pacific initiative. He made the remark during the ASEAN-India summit at Jakarta, Indonesia today. The Prime Minister said the history and geography, shared values, regional integration and the shared belief in peace and prosperity also unite India and ASEAN. Modi also announced to open Indian embassy in Dili, Timor-Leste. In conscience with the theme of this year's ASEAN Summit, ASEAN Matters, Epicentrum of Growth, Modi said, ASEAN matters because everyone's voice is heard and ASEAN is the epicenter of growth and global development. The Prime Minister also attended East Asia Summit and highlighted vision for Indo-Pacific between India and ASEAN. He called for strengthening multilateralism and ensuring free, open and rules-based Indo-Pacific. The Prime Minister also called for collectively addressing global issues, including terrorism, climate change, cyber security and challenges related to food, health and energy security. Prime Minister Narendra Modi presented 12-point proposal for strengthening India-ASEAN cooperation covering connectivity, digital transformation, trade and economic engagement, contemporary challenges, people-to-people contacts and deepening strategic engagement. Union Minister Rajeev Chandrasekhar has expressed optimism about Nagaland's economic prospects, citing the rich tradition of micro-entrepreneurship in arts and handicrafts. He was speaking during the inauguration of the revamped Nagaland Emporium in New Delhi yesterday. He also emphasized the importance of the Nagaland Emporium as a showcase of the state's talent and capabilities on a global stage, remarking that the government under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi is committed to assisting micro-entrepreneurs from all the districts to access broader markets. Advisor to the Chief Minister and Chairman of the Investment and Development Authority of Nagaland, Abu Metha, in his speech stressed that the newly renovated space embodies the Naga way of life and aims to pique the interest of visitors to learn more about Nagaland and its vibrant culture. He also noted that this endeavor aligns with the vision of the Chief Minister to elevate Nagaland to a state of excellence with a focus on benefiting the grassroots creators, manufacturers and artisans. Advisor Industries and Commerce Hekani Jakhalu delivered the welcome address. MLA Dr. Sukhato A Sema today released a book titled The Gaon Buras of the Villages and Towns in Nagaland, written by former Commissioner and Secretary K. Nzimongo Nguli in Dimapur. In his speech, Dr. Sema described GBs as the protectors, interpreters and custodians of the Naga customary laws, practices and traditional values. He remarked that since the inception of the Gaon Buras institution in Naga Hills during the British India government and till the formation of state government, the Gaon Buras have been loyal and supportive to the successive governments in power. He urged upon all to adhere to the legacy of the former GBs and maintain peace in their respective areas and continue to support and cooperate with the present government. Muli, speaking about the book, said it contains collection of notes about Gaon Buras gathered from practical experiences and while working with GBs in the administration of the villages. The author said it is neither literature nor history but simple and factual narrative of what the GBs have been doing. This news comes to you from Akashvani, Kohima. You can also listen to this news bulletin on News On Air app and YouTube channel AIR News Kohima. Centre has sought public comments on draft guidelines for prevention and regulation of dark patterns on online platforms. It strongly advised online platforms to not engage in unfair trade practices by incorporating dark patterns in their online interface to manipulate consumer choice and violate consumer rights. Consumer Affairs Ministry said the draft guidelines have been framed after detailed deliberations with all stakeholders including e-commerce platforms, law firms, government and voluntary consumer organizations. The ministry said guidelines will be made applicable to all persons and online platforms including sellers and advertisers. The objective of the guidelines is to identify and regulate such practices which tend to manipulate or alter consumer choices, often by using misleading techniques. The ministry said the proposed guidelines seek to oversee such practices which are prejudicial to the consumer interests. It said the department is committed to safeguarding consumer interests and promoting a fair and transparent marketplace, especially in the increasingly expanding and penetrative digital space. The proposed guidelines will further strengthen the industry and protect consumer interests. The ministry has sought public comments and suggestions on the draft guidelines within 30 days. As the world awaits the climax of the 18 G20 Leaders Summit, scheduled to begin on Saturday, world leaders have started arriving in the national capital to deliberate on a host of economic and developmental issues. The President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, will also arrive early in the city tomorrow. During the gathering of the world's leading economies at the summit, several issues ranging from food and energy security to clean energy transition, climate change and strengthening the capacity of multilateral development banks are likely to be advocated at length. The group of 20 economies accounts for over 85% of global GDP and 75% of international trade. Nagaland Pradesh Congress Committee and PCC, along with the rest of the country, organized Bharat Jodo Pad Yatra and Bharat Jodo Sammelan in the state capital Kohima today to mark the first anniversary of Bharat Jodo Yatra, with hundreds joining the march to render support. During a culmination program at Congress Bhavan, organizers said Rahul Gandhi had undertaken over 4,000-kilometer foot march from Kanyakumari to Srinagar last year with a vision to highlight and bring to light the issues and challenges the country is currently facing right from the grassroots level. They said that it is an aspiration of joint efforts to do something for the welfare of the state. And now to end the news, the headlines once again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India's G20 presidency focuses on human-centric progress. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says ASEAN is a central pillar of India's Act East policy and holds important place in Indo Pacific initiative. Union Minister Rajeev Chandrasekhar says Nagaland has a huge economic prospect in micro-entrepreneurship of arts and handicraft. And MLA Dr. Sukhato A Sema describes Gaon Buras as protectors, interpreters and custodians of Naga customary law. That is all we have in this evening news bulletin. Have a pleasant night.